Hey guys, I'm Rich from NeoWin. Today we're unboxing the Huawei P20 and the Huawei P20 Pro. So I'm pretty pumped for these phones, and that's for a few reasons actually. One is because I was a big fan of the P10 last year, which I still have right here, and this phone was never released in the United States, just like the P20 is not coming to the United States. And so this is a little different from most companies will tell you, well, we don't have anything to announce for that right now. Huawei will tell you this is not coming to the United States, and that's because the Mate is their United States brand. I have that right here. That's the Mate 10. The Mate 10 Pro. So interesting thing about that is Huawei's lineup is a little confusing. Uh, the Mate 10 Pro and the Mate 10 has the Kirin 970 chipset, which includes a neural processing unit, and there are lots of cool features that go along with that. But the point is, it's the same chipset that's in the P20, so a lot of the features are the same, and it's also in the Honor View 10. So these are different brands that kind of serve different purposes. The P series is very camera focused. So, like the Mate 10, it does have Leica cameras, and as you can see from the boxes, the P20 has a dual camera, and the P20 Pro actually has a triple lens camera. Now, just to get this out of the way, I'll be writing these reviews separately. We're going to unbox them together because it would be a little redundant to do them both separately. But the reviews will be separate because the reviews will be pretty focused on the camera, and they have very different camera features. So the camera on the P20 is 12 megapixels and 20 megapixels, right? 12 megapixels RGB and a 20 megapixel monochrome sensor. And then on the P20 Pro, you have a 40 megapixel RGB sensor and a 20 megapixel monochrome sensor, as well as an 8 megapixel telephoto lens, which is pretty cool. So one thing that I'm pretty pumped about, which I'm going to say the word pumped a lot because I've been pumped about these phones since I was briefed on them. I'm going to do a camera comparison with the Nokia Lumia 1020, which was the OG 40 megapixel phone, or 41 megapixels really. And that's still a classic. This phone came out in 2013. It's almost 5 years old, and it still holds weight today. So we're going to look at that more when I get a chance to get into these. So let's get these boxes open. So you can see that as far as the size of the devices go, there's not a huge difference. The P20 has a 5.8 inch screen, and the P20 Pro has a 6.1 inch screen. Both of them are 18 by 9, but the difference is the Pro is OLED. So again, not a big difference in screen size, and that's why you also have a difference in the naming this year, because like I said, I have the P10 here, and the counterpart to the P10 was the P10 Plus, not the P10 Pro. So that had a bigger difference in screen size though. This was 5 inches. The Plus, I believe, was 5.5 inches. So, and those were 16 by 9. So these are both 18 by 9. So 0.3 inches diagonally really isn't that much of a difference when you have that narrower screen. So we could boot this up. We could check out what else is in the box before we go any further. We have a SIM pin. So nothing else is in that little envelope there. We have a charger. Again, this device is not going to be released in the United States, so I'm going to have to use my own USB Type-C charger on this. So we have a Type A, or I could use any Type A adapter, I guess. But USB Type A to Type-C cable, headphones that plug into the USB Type-C port, because I believe that these phones do not have a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack. Okay. Power button over here, volume rocker. The power button is clearly identified by that red marker. USB Type-C port, dual speaker grills on the bottom, SIM slot over here, and they sent me the blue one, right, which is quite nice. Although I'm a big fan of the Twilight one that they made, which I like to call Blurple, but what it really is, it's you have like a cyan color on one side and purple over here, and it kind of blends together, and it's really nice. It's kind of something a little more original. So the P20 that they sent me is black, so I don't have any Blurple, I mean Twilight ones here. So here's the P20, and we'll take the plastic off. Oh, there's no plastic on the back, so I'm just going to take this sticker off. So one thing that we can see is if we take the front sticker off, there's still a screen protector on here. And if I'm not mistaken, if it's for the same reason that they did it on the P20, on the P10, was because there was no oleophobic coating on the P10. So you have this screen protector that stays on there because if you take it off, you're just going to get fingerprints all over the place, which isn't really cool for a premium device, but it is what it is. Okay, so we have these two devices restoring. You see that they look different, and that's because these they are different. I have the P20 Pro on the wrong side. They are different though. They're both 1080p, which is 1080 by 2244 on the P20 and 1080 by 2240 on the P20 Pro. But the Pro is an OLED display, while the P20 is an LCD. So LCD is a liquid crystal display. OLED is organic light emitting diodes. And what that means is that, one, you get more vibrant colors on an OLED display. You'll also get true blacks, which means that some pixels can be turned off. And an LCD is entirely backlit. That's why, like, when you have your TV on and it shows something all black, you can still tell that it's on because it's backlit. You can see both phones have a notch at the top, which was the first company to do that was Essential, but Apple kind of popularized it, and we're seeing it in a lot of phones now. Android P should natively support that. So this will now most likely go into Huawei's setup, which is kind of redundant. So now it's going to ask me, I signed in with a Huawei account, and now it's going to ask me cloud backup, phone clone. Thing is, I did all that stuff with my Google account. So now I want to say set as new device. And to me, this seems like it would be very confusing for the average user. Um, it's because you have Google asking you if you want to set it up as a new device or restore from backup, and then you have Huawei asking you the same thing. Huawei puts a very heavy skin on. Let's just turn all this on. Huawei puts a very heavy skin on all of its Android devices. It's called EMUI, and it's nothing new. This is EMUI 8.1, which means it aligns with Android 8.1. We're going to set fingerprint ID right now because Huawei does have amazing fingerprint sensors. Like, I would say, I think it's fair to say that these are the best fingerprint sensors around. They're fast. I first realized it with the P10, and it's one of the reasons that I love that device so much. When I got that phone, I found myself trying different fingers to. This is not working. I found myself trying different fingers just to see if it was actually checking anything because for a while I thought it wasn't. Right, so I've enrolled my face in facial recognition too, but for a while I thought it wasn't. It's just so fast and so quick that it feels like it's not actually checking anything at all. So yeah, like I said, EMUI. All right, get started, and we're in. So this is the P20 Pro with its OLED display. It looks amazing, as you'd probably expect. Huawei already has great displays, so OLED is even better. So a couple things about the device. You can see it's quite the fingerprint magnet. This is just from using it in the time I've spent recording this video. It does have a glass back, so if you drop this device, it's gonna break, and it'll be more expensive to replace that glass back than just the screen. And I'm not sure why they're doing it because they did it with the Mate 10 Pro as well. This also has a glass back. Last year, the P10, this was aluminum, and it was great. And I really don't know why they would change that because they didn't include wireless charging at all. And I actually asked them why no wireless charging. They said because it's really slow. And I can't blame them for that. Wireless charging is super slow. But the thing is, I mean, there's no reason to include a glass back because it is pretty, but it catches fingerprints, it breaks easily, and if you're not going to include wireless charge, there's not much point. So there is, I think they call it turbocharging. That's when you're using wired charging, and it's super fast. But to me, it doesn't make sense to have a glass back if you don't include wireless charging. There's also there's no always on display on Huawei devices. You can't tap to wake it up. That's always bothered me. I like like with my iPhone or something. If I wake up in the morning, I just pick it up and it's on, or I can tap the screen and it's on. And double tap to wake, raise to wake. These are things that I've seen on a lot of other devices. I'm kind of picking it apart now because I am a huge fan of the phone. You can see that it's very similar in terms of design to the iPhone 10, especially if you look at the P20 Pro, which doesn't have that separately housed third lens. Uh, but other than and that could be why they don't sell these things in the United States, because again, this is not coming to the United States. But I am pumped for the phone. Like I think this is going to be a great phone because I loved the P10 last year, and I think this is going to be even better. You can see though, the settings are kind of look a little bit like iOS. Huawei doesn't hide the fact that the stuff is similar to iOS. Like I said, it's very camera centric. So switch camera modes. You can see that switching camera modes is different now from this little demo here. We have a completely new camera app, and that was what I was checking. Again, more similar to iOS in the way that it switches between these, which is fine. I don't know why you need a separate night mode for an AI camera that's supposed to be able to tell what it's looking at. But we'll see. There should be 19 camera settings in this now, whereas the Mate 10 and the Honor View 10 only had 13 settings, although those extra ones should come through a software update. So the neural processing unit should be able to tell what it's looking at and adjust camera settings accordingly. But it doesn't work on the monochrome sensor. But yeah, and then you have more here. So the monochrome sensor is really nice. It's super weird that it looks much better than if you tried to take an RGB photo and convert it to black and white for some reason. It's kind of creepy that it actually does so well. So again, the cameras that we have in these phones, right? Dual camera on the P20, triple camera on the P20 Pro. 12 megapixel RGB on the P20 and 20 megapixel monochrome. That's f1.8 and f1.6 apertures respectively. Okay. But the P20 Pro is where it really shines with a 40 megapixel RGB at f1.8, 20 megapixel monochrome f1.6, and then that 8 megapixel telephoto. They're both promising 5x hybrid zoom, which seems more likely in the P20 Pro. So the cool thing about 40 megapixels, and that was one of the selling points of the Lumia 1020 and the Nokia PureView 808. You can't really do optical zoom in a smartphone, because if you've ever had a DSLR and you've changed the zoom, the lenses have to move further apart and closer together, and you don't really have room for that in a body this size. So what we're seeing some companies do is adding a second lens that plays with the sensor size and the aperture to pretty much have a smaller field of view with the same resolution, and they're calling that optical zoom. That's not really how it works. Smartphones have digital zoom, and the way that works is, say you have an 8 megapixel camera and you zoom in by 2x, you're really only using 4 megapixels, so you lose quality the more you zoom. But when you have a 40 megapixel camera and you go to 2x zoom, you're still getting 20 megapixels of quality. So think about a 4K display. A 4K display is 8.3 megapixels. 1080p full HD, that's only about 2.1 megapixels. So essentially you're not losing quality by cropping that 40 megapixel image. So on top of that, you have that 8 megapixel, what they call a telephoto lens, and then that 20 megapixel monochrome. So it's a total of 68 megapixels in the camera, but you're not getting a 68 megapixel image. But it's really cool because you're going to be able to zoom in on the photo without losing that quality. I already have some samples from the hands-on that I had with it on NeoWin. So yeah, that's the P20 Pro. The thing is, the P20 isn't nearly as exciting, right? It doesn't have the 40 megapixel lens. By the way, they both have a 24 megapixel front camera, which is great. I'm not a big front camera guy. But, it doesn't have the 40 megapixel lens. It has the 20 megapixel monochrome sensor. But it's not nearly as exciting, and I kind of feel bad for this phone, because it would be exciting if they didn't announce the P20 Pro at the same time. I mean, the P10 was awesome. And just as a follow-up to that, I would be super excited about the P20. But the P20 Pro is here, and that's where the fun is at, And I'm super psyched to do some real camera tests with these, and I'll have a review for you in a few weeks. And that's about all I got. Anyway, guys, I'm Rich from NeoWin. Have a great night.